Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering you only have 24 hours left to live. Not a year, not a month, just one single day before everything you know, everything you are, vanishes into permanent darkness. What would you do differently? Would you still waste time scrolling mindlessly through your phone? Would you still hold on to that grudge against someone you once loved? Would you still postpone that dream, that conversation, that moment of truth? The ancient Stoics had a phrase for this inevitable reality, and they whispered it to themselves every single morning like a sacred ritual. Memento Mori. Remember, you will die. And today we're going to explore why this terrifying truth might actually be the most liberating wisdom you'll ever encounter, and how embracing your mortality could completely transform the way you live right now, in this very moment. Most people spend their entire lives running from death, pretending it's something that happens to other people, something distant and abstract that exists only in hospitals and funeral homes. We build elaborate mental fortresses to keep the reality of our impermanence at bay. We fill every waking moment with distractions, noise, and endless entertainment. Anything to avoid sitting alone with the uncomfortable truth that our time here is borrowed and the clock is ticking faster than we dare to admit. But the Stoic philosophers took a radically different approach. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the ancient world, an emperor who commanded armies and controlled vast territories, would begin each day by reminding himself that he could die at any moment. He wrote in his personal journal, his Meditations, that we should act as if we are dying, because in truth, we are. Every breath we take is one breath closer to our last. Every sunrise we witness is one fewer we have remaining. This wasn't morbid pessimism or psychological torture. It was a deliberate practice designed to strip away everything superficial and reveal what actually matters. Think about how you've spent the last week of your life. How many hours disappeared into activities you'll barely remember? How many moments slipped through your fingers while you were busy planning for a future that isn't even guaranteed? The Stoics understood something profound about human psychology. When we forget about death, we become careless with life. We treat our days as if they're infinite, as if there will always be more time to do the things that matter, to become the person we want to be, to tell the people we love how much they mean to us. But there won't always be more time. The universe doesn't owe you another decade, another year, or even another hour. Your heart could stop beating before you finish reading this sentence. Your brain could cease functioning while you're asleep tonight. A car could lose control tomorrow morning, and everything you are could be erased in an instant. This isn't pessimism, this is reality. And the Stoics believed that truly understanding this reality, viscerally feeling it in your bones, would wake you up from the trance most people sleepwalk through their entire lives. Seneca, another great Stoic philosopher, wrote extensively about time and how we waste it. He observed that people are extremely protective of their physical property, fighting tooth and nail over tiny pieces of land or small amounts of money, yet they're incredibly careless with their time, which is the only truly non-renewable resource they possess. You can always make more money, you can acquire new possessions, but you can never, ever create more time. Once a moment passes, it's gone forever, dissolved into the past, irretrievable and unrepeatable. Seneca watched wealthy Romans accumulate massive fortunes while postponing actually living, always telling themselves they would enjoy life later, after they made just a bit more money, after they achieved just one more goal. And then they would die, surrounded by treasures they never enjoyed, having traded their finite days for infinite regret. He called this the greatest tragedy of human existence. Not that life is short, but that we waste so much of it acting as if it's long. Here's what makes Memento Mori so psychologically powerful. When you genuinely internalize your mortality, when you feel in your gut that your death is not just possible, but inevitable and potentially imminent, everything changes. The petty arguments that consume your energy suddenly seem absurd. The social anxieties that paralyze you lose their grip. The material possessions you chase so desperately reveal themselves as ultimately meaningless. What rises to the surface instead are the things that actually matter, the relationships that give life texture and meaning, the experiences that make you feel truly alive, the contributions that might outlast your temporary existence, the moments of genuine connection that remind you why being human is so extraordinary despite its brevity. Death becomes not an enemy to fear, but a teacher to learn from, a clarifying force that burns away everything false and leaves only what's essential. The Stoics practiced regular contemplation of death, but they also took it a step further with something called negative visualization. They would imagine in vivid detail losing everything they valued. Marcus Aurelius would contemplate the death of his children, his wife, his own sudden demise. This sounds cruel, even masochistic, but the purpose was profound. By regularly confronting the worst possible outcomes, he immunized himself against being destroyed by them if they occurred. More importantly, this practice made him deeply grateful for what he had right now, in the present moment. When you imagine losing someone you love, truly picture never seeing them again, never hearing their voice, never sharing another meal or conversation. Something happens. The next time you see them differently. You're not taking them for granted anymore. You're not distracted by your phone or lost in thoughts about work. You're present, fully present, because you've reminded yourself that this moment is precious and unrepeatable and could be the last. Modern psychology has actually validated this ancient Stoic practice. Research shows that contemplating mortality can reduce materialistic desires, increase pro-social behavior, make people more willing to help others, and even improve physical health by motivating better lifestyle choices. When people are reminded of their mortality in controlled studies, they become more authentic, more focused on intrinsic values rather than external validation, more willing to repair damaged relationships, and more motivated to pursue meaningful goals rather than superficial ones. The Stoics discovered through philosophical inquiry what neuroscience is now confirming through empirical research. Acknowledging death doesn't make you depressed or nihilistic. It makes you alive. But here's the scary part that most people never confront. You're not just going to die someday in the distant future. You're dying right now. Every single second that passes is a second of your life that you'll never get back. You're spending the currency of your existence reading these words, and you can never reclaim this time. The question isn't whether you should think about death. You're living inside of death right now, experiencing it in slow motion, one heartbeat at a time. The real question is whether you're going to acknowledge this and live accordingly, or whether you're going to keep pretending you have unlimited time and wake up one day, maybe on your deathbed, maybe in a hospital room, maybe in your final moments, realizing you wasted the most precious gift you were ever given. Imagine if someone handed you exactly $1,000 and told you it was all the money you would ever have for the rest of your life. You'd be incredibly careful with every dollar, weighing every purchase, making sure you spent it on things that truly mattered. Yet we treat our time, which is infinitely more valuable than money, with reckless abandon. We throw away hours on things we don't care about, with people who drain our energy, in pursuits that lead nowhere meaningful. The Stoics would look at modern life and see people volunteering for their own imprisonment, building cages out of obligations they don't want, relationships that feel hollow, careers that crush their spirit, all while their finite days evaporate like morning fog under the rising sun. So what do you do with this information? How do you actually apply Memento Mori to your life in a way that transforms how you live? The Stoics would tell you to start every single day by acknowledging that it might be your last. Not in a morbid way, but in a way that forces you to prioritize. If today were your last day on Earth, would you spend it angry at someone over something trivial? Would you waste it in meaningless activities that numb you rather than fulfill you? Or would you tell the people you love how much they matter? Would you do that thing you've been putting off? Would you forgive yourself and others? Would you actually live instead of just existing? Marcus Aurelius had a practice where he would imagine, each night before sleep, that he might not wake up. He would review his day and ask himself if he had lived in accordance with his values, if he had been the person he wanted to be, if he had made choices he could be proud of if they turned out to be his last. This nightly audit forced him to course-correct constantly, to not let days pile up into weeks and months and years of wasted potential. He knew something that most people never grasp until it's too late. You don't get to live your life over. There's no second draft, no do-over, no reset button. This is it. This moment right here, right now, is your life happening. Not tomorrow, not next year, not when you finally achieve that goal or acquire that thing or reach that destination. Now. And now is already becoming then, slipping into the past even as you try to hold on to it. The fear of death that most people carry is actually a fear of not having lived. Deep down, we're not afraid of ceasing to exist. We're afraid of reaching the end and realizing we never truly existed in the first place, that we sleepwalked through our days, that we were so busy preparing for life that we forgot to actually live it. The Stoics eliminated this fear by refusing to postpone living. They didn't wait for the perfect conditions or the right time or the ideal circumstances. They understood that there is no perfect time because time itself is imperfect, finite, and constantly running out. The right time is now. The ideal circumstances are the ones you have. The perfect conditions are a fantasy that keeps you trapped in perpetual preparation for a life you never quite start living. Think about the grudges you're holding. The Stoics would ask you a simple question. Is this worth spending your limited time on? Think about the fears that hold you back from pursuing what you really want. Marcus Aurelius would remind you that the opinion of someone who'll be dead in a few decades shouldn't control choices that affect your one precious existence. Think about the possessions you're accumulating, the status you're chasing, the external validation you're seeking. Seneca would point out that you can't take any of it with you, and none of it will matter when you're staring into the void at the end. What will matter is whether you loved fully, whether you were courageous, whether you stayed true to yourself, whether you made the most of the improbable miracle of being alive at all. There's a Stoic meditation where you imagine your own funeral. Who's there? What are they saying about you? What did your life amount to? What mark did you leave? And then you ask yourself the most important question. If you died tomorrow, would the eulogy match the life you want to have lived? For most people, there's a painful gap between how they're actually living and how they wish they were living. Memento Mori is the tool that closes that gap. It's the wake-up call that shocks you out of autopilot and forces you to examine whether you're spending your irreplaceable days on what actually matters to you or what you've been conditioned to think should matter. The really terrifying part about mortality isn't death itself. It's the realization that you've been given this extraordinary gift of consciousness, this brief window of experience in an infinite universe, and you've been squandering it. You've been trading your life, your actual, literal life, for things that don't fulfill you, for approval from people whose opinions won't matter in 100 years, for comfort that numbs you instead of happiness that enlivens you. And time keeps passing. The days keep disappearing, you keep getting older, and that gap between who you are and who you could be keeps widening unless you do something about it right now. Here's what the Stoics want you to understand. You're going to die. That's not a possibility or a probability, it's a certainty, and you don't know when. It could be 60 years from now in your sleep, or it could be 60 seconds from now in a way you never saw coming. But between now and then, you have a choice. You can live as if you're immortal, carelessly wasting the days you're given, or you can live as if each moment matters, because it does. You can keep postponing the life you want to live, or you can start living it immediately. You can remain asleep, or you can wake up. The Stoics chose to wake up. They chose to live deliberately, consciously, fully, extracting every drop of meaning and beauty and growth from their limited time. And because they did, their words are still reaching across 2,000 years to wake you up right now. So here's your homework from the ancient Stoics. Tonight, before you sleep, spend 5 minutes contemplating your mortality. Really sit with it. Imagine that you won't wake up tomorrow. Feel what that brings up. And then ask yourself if you lived today in a way that honored the preciousness of being alive. Tomorrow morning, remind yourself again that this could be your last day, and then live accordingly. Tell someone you love them if you feel it. Start that project you've been putting off. Forgive someone who doesn't even know you're still angry. Do something that makes you feel truly alive instead of just passing time. Let the awareness of death become your teacher, your motivator, your compass pointing toward what actually matters. If this message resonated with you, if it sparked something, or challenged you, or made you think differently about how you're living, drop a comment below and share what you're going to do differently starting today. And share this video with someone who needs to hear it, someone who's sleepwalking through life, someone who's forgotten that time is the most precious resource they'll ever have. Remember, you will die. Let that truth set you free to finally, fully live.